Welcome everyone. First of all, happy Women's Day. We are going to talk a lot today about women from different perspectives with a great group of panelists that we host today at Bahçeşehir University Department of Political Science and International Relations. So welcome everyone. So today is, well, the International Women's Day. It is almost 110 years past since we've been, well, celebrating, the Women's Day, but unfortunately not always with good news. So we can't really say, I don't know how much, to what extent celebration, but it is still like we have to talk a lot about different issues, different problems related to women in different parts of the world that are common to different societies, different countries. And unfortunately, there is like an accumulation of new issues related to gender equality, inclusivity, and different perspectives related to women. Well, of course, the panel that we host today is about gender politics and an inclusive world. Well, this is very much related to the theme of the year, inclusivity. And we also, in our poster, we put the hashtag that is assigned for this year, Choosetochallenge. And well, maybe we can think of more opportunities to improve women participation in politics, in social life, in economic sector, in education, more and more effectively, of course, because when we talk about like women in leadership, we see in world politics very powerful women leaders, right? We have Angela Merkel, we have the Scandinavian examples, we even very important examples from some African states where the women hold very important power, offices in different, at different executive legislative levels. But still, it's not enough because, unfortunately, for instance, in Turkey, we witness terrible violence against women. Still, we talk a lot and we suffer from, the glass ceiling syndrome. So there is like a long list of, problems, as well as, of course, opportunities. So I don't want to make everyone very pessimistic today. We have, I don't want to take too much of your time, but we will probably be talking about, at least framing the problems in, in politics and women, with women. And we will also talk about some, social problems related to women in this panel today. We have a great example of a successful female graduate of Bahçeşehir University Political Science Department. We have Arzu Akar here. That Arzu was our graduate for a long time ago, right? She graduated from our department and she became a very successful BAU POLSIR graduates, and she is in diplomacy. She will tell more about herself probably and her experience. And so, I don't want to be that pessimist. Let me move very, quickly to introduce our speakers today. Well, I want to start with Rahime Hoca. Rahime, of course, Rahime is our colleague at our department, who does great things on feminist foreign policy. She has co-edited very recently feminist foreign policy in Europe. And then she is also an author of her own book, and she has, published extensively on gender and EU studies. So a long list. So even if you've not met her yet at our department, please have a look at her long CV. It is available, on our website, right? So needless to sort of put more about Rahime Hoca, we all know her. And thank you very much, Rahime, for joining us and for putting your effort in the realization of this panel today. We also have Murat Yıldırım, who is a young associate professor at the Political Science Department at the University of Stavanger in Norway, right? And he has recently co-authored a brilliant piece at the American Political Science Review with his co-authors and the title of their work is From Thin to Thick Representation, How a Female President Shapes Female Parliamentary Behavior, where Murat will be talking about the symbolic power of female presidents and the female parliamentary behaviors, well, discrimination about and stereotyping of women parliamentarians, so forth and so on, and thick representation to women voters, of course. So we are looking forward to listening to you, Murat, and thank you very much for being with us today. And then, of course, as I briefly mentioned a minute ago, Arzu Akar is also here with us today, and I'm very happy, Arzu, that you're with us, right? As I told you, you are a great example of successful graduates of our department. We are very proud of what you have done so far. Well, Arzu is, well, she graduated from Bahçeşehir and then she's done her master graduate studies at Marmara University, then at LSE with the Jean Monnet Scholarship. And then, well, she's currently working as a senior analyst at EU Directorate under the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Well, Arzu, again, welcome, and thank you very much for being with us today. And lastly, but well, we will have Maysa El Hafez. Well, I happened to meet her through Damla Hoca. Well, we know Damla is working on immigration and refugees extensively, and I thank again Damla that you just introduced us like virtually, but still it's with great pleasure to have Maysa as a last speaker today. Well, Maysa is actually a very active civil society personality. She's a musician, she's a composer, music therapist, and she's the director of Harmony Music Center, and she's also the founder and the conductor of Mosaic Oriental Choir, which is composed of refugee women, and they do great things. They have an account on Instagram, so I strongly advise you just to follow them, what they're doing, like how to build the host society community and the migrant community, so forth and so on. And Maysa today will be talking about women and refugees, not from maybe a political perspective, more from a societal perspective, and we are looking forward to listen to Maysa. And well, I again want to thank everyone, also everyone who joined us today. I see our students. That's a great pleasure for us to have you, our dean, my colleagues from my department. So again, I think we can just get started with Rahime, feminist politics, feminist foreign policy. So Rahime, yes, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ebru Hocam, for this very nice introduction to our panel and also myself. As Ebru Hocam mentioned, I'm based at the Department of Political Science and International Relations at Bahçeşehir University, and my current research focuses exactly on this theme, and women in international relations, and with a particular emphasis on women and diplomacy and the EU and gender equality. So I recently edited the book Feminist Framing of Europeanization, where we elaborated gender equality policies in Turkey and the EU, taking the EU as an external actor, but also unpacking and problematizing the youth gender equality promotion tools and strategies. So today I'm going to talk about feminist foreign policy. And feminist foreign policy emerged as a concept with Margot Wallström's Swedish Foreign Minister declaration in 2014 that Sweden will follow a feminist foreign policy. So I will start by defining and elaborating on the concept of feminist foreign policy and its links to human security, and then I will present some of the recent academic research focusing on feminist foreign policy. And I think talking about this concept is really important, as perhaps it's the most useful tool, it seems, to change the world, not only to make a woman-inclusive world, but also to make a woman-focused world. Perhaps another concept that we should add. So, as you all know, there are two international developments marking the evolution of international norms on gender equality. One is Beijing Platform for Action, which has been adopted in 1995 on the 4th World Women Conference organized by the UN in Beijing, which made the gender mainstreaming a global strategy. And the second is the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, Women, Peace and Security Agenda in 2000, calling increased participation of women in international peace and security decision makings. So today we have more than 20 years passed since the adoption of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, but women still make up only one third of the diplomats in arms control and disarmament forums. So, to start with, I want to, as the concept owes a lot to Margaret Wallström, I would like to start with her career a little bit and where the idea of feminist foreign policy was born. So when Margaret Wallström was the EU Commissioner on Communication, she was very vocal about the male stream decision-making structure in the European Union. So she also served as the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, and on numerous occasions she had emphasized the link between women's participation in global politics and sustainable peace, and the notion that women's empowerment positively impacts both national and global security. So also according to research conducted by the UN analyzing the peace negotiations from 1990 to 2016, I think, and so women's participation in peace processes has ranged between 2 to 8%. And when and in position as mediators, negotiators, or signatories of peace agreements, and women's involvement through such roles increased the probability of reaching out a peace that lasted at least for 15 years by 35%. So that's a critical number that should be taken into consideration by perhaps all foreign ministries around the world. So she was very critical about the EU. She said she's fed up with the EU being the regime of old men because an inner circle of male decision makers agree behind closed doors on whom to nominate to top EU jobs. And old men choose old men as always. So her point was clear. Just look at the family photos of the EU Council summits. It's almost only, all men lined up, reminding that humanity consists of 50% women. So following this open criticism, a number of academic studies have been published capturing this. Ioana Cantola is an important scholar to look at in that regard. She's arguing that, the EU has promoting gender equality all around the world, but it's itself clashing with the highest glass ceiling because, European Council is the institution which is most male dominated, and it is the one that sets the long-term targets and priorities of the European Union. Likewise, Council of the European Union is the most important institution in the legislative process of the European Union, and it's still the most male dominated. So it's crashing the highest level of glass ceiling just by itself. So coming back to the question of what is feminist foreign policy, according to Wallström, it's putting feminism at the center of international relations and all foreign policy priorities. So it is simply prioritizing women's needs and experiences and in the design of foreign policy with the very obvious acknowledgement that women and children, especially girls, are the most to suffer, not only at the time of conflict, but at the time of peace as well. So Sweden's justification, as presented by Wallström in her speech at Helsinki University in 2015, indicated if continuous violation of the rights of women and girls continue, which is a fact both at times of war and peace, again, if this is not addressed, all other foreign policy and security policy targets are deemed to fail. So she was quite assertive about that. So basically, foreign policy is built on the simple acknowledgement that more women means more peace, and centered on involving and engaging women in peace processes. So that will be good for peace and security in the country, but also in global politics. And at the center of policy, Sweden defines 3 R's. First is the rights. So a feminist foreign policy should build on the basic acknowledgement whether women enjoy the same legal and human rights and whether they can use those rights. And second R is representation. So we should be looking at whether women are represented, are they around the table when most important decisions, which mostly also influences their life, are taken, and whether also they have influence in those decisions. Because, you know, having women on the table doesn't automatically lead women having influence on those decisions, whether the woman's words count. And third is resources. Do the resources go and meet the needs of girls and women? Okay, so these 3 R's are the framework that the feminist foreign policy is built around. And so this has been taken as a holistic approach by Sweden, focusing on the statistics and facts, and it's being implemented by all Sweden's embassies around the world. So they look at simple issues, whether, the girls can go to school in that country, whether there are early child marriages, like before age of 15, whether, they have the right to inherit as men have, whether women can be politically represented and whether they can do anything about this. And most importantly, they insist on an important concept, which is, getting more, familiarized, is gender responsive budgeting. Gender responsive budgeting does not mean, separating a budget or allocating a budget for women, but perhaps it's more about, taking the whole budget from a gender lens, applying a gender analysis, so to assessing whether man and woman can actually benefit from the same, from the budget in the same way. Okay, so these are the centerpieces of the implementation of the feminist foreign policy. And so it is, I can say that feminist foreign policy is distinct for 2 reasons, building on the recent studies by, Karina Gestam and her colleagues. So it shifts politics from a broadly consensual orientation of gender mainstreaming towards a more controversial politics. So, and specifically towards those that explicitly seek to renegotiate and challenge power hierarchies and gendered institutions that define global institutions and foreign and security policies. Okay, so this is the first distinction. And the second is it contains a normative reorientation of foreign policy that is guided by ethically informed framework based on the broad cosmopolitan terms of global justice and peace. Okay, so there are a lot of studies focusing on ethical foreign policy, but when we look at these studies, they are gender blind. So they don't really, they look at the ethics in a gender blind way. I'm not necessarily saying that they are not valuable. Of course, they're very important, but they are gender blind. But feminist foreign policy is also ethical in that sense, because it looks at all these discrimination and representation issues, but from a gender sensitive perspective. So when Sweden announced this policy in 2014, of course, it was a bit, shocking news of what is going to happen, what will be inside of it. But it's now being picked up in a lot of countries like Norway, Mexico, Canada. So this policy is centered on the need to change women when it comes to foreign and security, centering on the need to engage women when it comes to foreign and security policy. So we have, for example, Hillary Doctrine, focusing on the subjugation of women as a security threat to the US and the world. And also United Kingdom promoted a normative shift towards the eradication of sexual violence in conflict under British Foreign Secretary William Hague. And Julia Bishop, Australia's first woman foreign minister, who was very important in increasing the visibility of Australia in the UN, she also consistently promoted gender mainstreaming in international affairs while she was in office. So, of course, very importantly, Norway has a good track record of actively supporting gender mainstreaming in areas of peacekeeping, peace building and development assistance. So more broadly, I can say that feminist foreign policy bridges the link between nation security and human security. So as highlighted in human security, the focusing on the needs of people, their access to basic food, health, services, and being free from violence. So gender equality is not considered only a matter of social justice, but of international security in predicting state aggressiveness more internationally. Okay, so based on this analysis, I would like to continue with another problematization, perhaps, which I think is important. Whether women's representation makes a change in line with women's needs or rights. To this point, we should also remember Pitkin's point of the difference between descriptive and substantive representation. The descriptive representation, we assess women standing for women, so their numbers, their ratios and percentages. But in substantive representation, we look at whether they act for women, so whether they work for women's interests and women's rights, or protecting their access to the same resources as men. This is, underlined in one of our contributors in our edited book by Choosetochallenge, underlining that at the time of highest political representation of women in the Turkish parliament, women did not really, they stand for women, but they did not act for women. They even initiated policies that are contrary to women's interests on issues such as, abortion and so on. So women's representation is considered important here, and we can, I think, cite two important works that are confirmed to a large extent by later academic studies. One is Anne Phillips' argument, legitimacy argument for women's representation. So she notes that women politicians become role model for women candidates. So when we see women, successful women, actually other women can follow their lead. So as a role model, we need women. And it's women's equal representation with men is an emblem of social, is an emblem of justice. So, we can actually see that, as a sample of the society being represented. And a wide range of academic research also confirmed that women's interests are protected only by women. Why? It's not like something, a bad intention of men, but it's simply that they don't have the experiences of women. And because they don't have the experiences of women, they cannot represent women in the same way that women can. And women's political participation revives democracy because it brings other issues that are not considered or thought of by men, and it brings further deliberation. And Susan Dovey adds two more arguments to that. So according to the institutional trust argument, women's representation in political institutions encourage greater trust in women in those institutions. So when we actually see, for example, in the Ministry of Interior or the police officers, when you see women are more likely to open up themselves and tell their problems to other women about domestic violence or other issues. So when women are taken in the decision-making roles, there are higher cases of reporting on this very basic issues such as domestic violence. And second, according to the legitimacy argument, women's participation includes democratic legitimacy of the institutions. Okay, so before I conclude, I would like to express, how this feminist foreign policy issue is captured in academic studies. Of course, it's a new field because it's been, a couple of years so far. Karina Gestam, Annika Bergman-Rosmond, and Annika Kronsel wrote an article in 2019 about theorizing feminist foreign policy, which is worth looking at because they explain the difference between the ethical foreign policy and feminist foreign policy. The ethical foreign policy is not necessarily inclusive of feminist foreign policy, but feminist foreign policy is quite inclusive. So in this study, authors use feminist international relations and ethics of care to theorize feminist foreign policy by looking and using the lived experiences of women and other marginalized groups at the receiving end of the foreign policy conduct. So basically, if we talk about international community and all international politics is for their security, then the 50% of the world's population, women, and their lived experiences should be taken into consideration quite, extensively as male. And so it is ethical. Feminist foreign policy is ethical because it looks at things such as like gender discrimination, inequalities, violence, or lack of inclusion of or representation of women or other marginalized groups. And but other studies appear, and they also criticize to be, other studies on ethical foreign policy as gender blind. And of course, there are also some other, more, when this ethical foreign policy issue became viral, there were some, arguments about it being an, fancy, branding. And also Katarzyna Jerska and Towns wrote an article about this, analyzing Sweden's feminist foreign policy as a nation branding strategy. But of course, we should think about, when any state conducts a humanitarian foreign policy, it means, is it bad, to use this for branding purposes? I do not think that this is necessarily a bad thing, but, if you conduct and implement this feminist foreign policy successful, using it for branding purposes may not be too bad idea. I think this will be all of my summary of feminist foreign policy today. And I'm hoping that, at the end, in the Q&A session, we can expand it more. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about this.
Thank you very much, Reema. And that was, I think, very important to set like a framework, theoretical framework to the feminist studies in foreign policy. During the 1980s, there were like 11 women as, elected head of states, right? And this increased like to 22 in 1990s and 25 in, 2000s. And since the statistics say that since 2000, there have been like 56 women elected leader of their nation, right? And if you go through the details of some statistics like Women's Power Index or political parity scores and certain index that work with them, we know that the Nordic countries by far hold the global leadership in terms of gender political parity and leadership. But we also have other, brilliant examples from different parts of the world, from, Latin America, Africa, or Asia Pacific. And we will hear more about the female, parliamentary behavior with an empirical study from Murat Yıldırım. I don't want to take too much time off him. And yes, the floor is yours, and we're looking forward to having your empirical results.
Thank you. I'd like to share my screen first. Let's see. All right, can you all see it? Okay, so first of all, thanks for organizing this important event and for inviting me to present my research as part of the program. My name is Murat Yıldırım, and I'm an associate professor of political science at the University of Stavanger in Norway. My research focuses on things like legislative behavior, gender and politics, and representation. So today, the topic is not about foreign policy, but it's not too far. It's about the symbolic power of women in prime ministerial or presidential positions. All right, so we all know about the challenges facing women in politics, and the list is huge, right? So I can't really summarize this list of challenges facing women in politics, but recent research or past research has shown that women are equally qualified as men for elected positions, though they are not held. They are held to different standards. So, for example, it's not good if they are too ambitious, right? This was the case with Hillary Clinton in the past election. If they look too ambitious, that looks bad on them, right? So men can be ambitious as much as they want, but women can't for these gender stereotypes. So not only are women held to different standards, but they also have difficulty capturing seats in legislative institutions in the first place. So this is This was the case in the US Congress some 30 years ago. But if you look at the trend over time, not much has changed over the past 30 years. So things are not changing, that's for sure. And this is not particularly about the US. This is the case in different parts of the world as well. So if you look at this list, there are only 3 countries, Rwanda, Cuba, and Bolivia, that managed to exceed the threshold of 50% in terms of women's representation in parliament. And this is even worse for the upper house. So no country managed to get 50%. The best case is Mexico. So things are still not well for women in politics. So here today, I'd like to talk briefly about my research, revolving around the question of, does the symbolic power of women in executive positions help diminish the challenges facing them? So help diminish the challenges facing women in elected office. And specifically, I'll be talking about this recent piece published in APSR by Michael Wallman, an assistant professor at Michigan State, Nikolaos Franciscakis, a graduate student at Michigan State again, and by myself. So even though this is going to be a paper presentation, I tried to make it sound like a talk as much as possible, not to make it too boring as a typical conference paper. And I hope I succeeded at that, but we'll see. So, but before this, so here we are looking at the case of Malawi in Africa. It's an Eastern African country with that has recently experienced a change from a male to female president. But I'll talk more about the details in the coming slides. All right, again, I'll try to keep this part short. The most important question is, of course, in the study of representation is, who should represent women in parliament? And the answer is yes for women, past research says. And this is because female politicians are expected to be better equipped to represent the interests of female voters, because they have the same experiences, right? For instance, research showed that women in parliament are more likely to prioritize women's issues, or what they call feminist issues or feminine issues, right? So these are issues that are of utmost importance for women. Again, briefly, so we see this increasing trend in descriptive representation. More women, slightly more women, manage to get seats in the parliament or in representative institutions. And we also see some changes following this increase in representation. So, for example, we see that in countries where we have more women, we see more likelihood to run for office among women. We are seeing changes in perceptions of female leadership, and also women's engagement in political events, or let's say political participation. All right, so here we hypothesize that when a woman becomes the head of government, first, women in parliament will take the legislative floor more frequently. And second, we hypothesize that women in parliament will speak more frequently on the economy, because this is normally considered a male domain. So males, men in parliament, are more likely to talk more about things like the economy, things like foreign policy, crime, and all that. And we argue that if we had a woman as the head of the government, this will change these perceptions. Women in parliament will feel empowered and will be will feel more encouraged to speak more about the economy and things like foreign policy. But now we are testing the economy for brevity. All right, this person is at the center of our research. And what made him so important for us was his passing in in office in the middle of his term. So this beautiful design allowed us to see if this endogenous shock has changed how female parliamentarians behaved in the parliament. So we basically looked at before and after his passing, what has changed, because his vice president was a female, Joyce Banda. So he was the president in 2009, and he ran for re-election and won. And then in this case, his vice president was a female legislator, Joyce Banda. And then suddenly he died in office. It was just a heart attack, so nothing political. And he died right in the middle of his term. So exactly like 2 years, 10 months, and the remaining term was 2 years, 2 months. Again, nothing has changed in terms of partisanship, members of parliaments and all that. But only this person has died in office and was replaced by a female president. And this is Joyce Banda. All right, so our empirical approach was this. So one of us, Michael Lawman, has done fieldworks in Malawi in multiple points in time. And he was able to get this Hansard text from the parliament, like I think 500 pages or something. He brought it back to the US, and then we were able to scan it and then had 5 undergrad coders code some of these speeches manually. So, and our goal was to have this smaller amount of speeches coded by the undergrad students, and then use this for machine learning to code a larger number of 45,000 speeches from the same term. It was not perfect, but it was just 94% precision in terms of coding which topic, which speech is handling what topic. So we have 183 members of parliament, and we had 9 parliamentary sessions, 5 of them from the term of Mutharika, the male president, and the rest was from Joyce Banda. All right, so our dependent variable was counts of speeches per month. So how many speeches X person has made in this period of time, so in 30 days. And we used zero inflated negative binomial models because we have a lot of zeros in the data set. So most members of parliaments don't want to speak a single word. So the rest are having some 5, 6, 10 speeches, but some are also 40, 50 speeches per month. So we have this kind of unbalanced data, and that's why we used zero inflated models. And we used the traditional independent variables, things like gender seniority, if the MP is a newcomer or not, committee membership in certain committees, partisan identification, and time, month, as one of the control variables. So why Malawi? Again, in addition to this beautiful design, a person is passing in the middle of his term and was replaced by a female legislator, a woman. In addition to that, we looked at how Malawi looked like in this period, and it seems like Malawi is not an exemption. Is a typical case in terms of political empowerment index coming from the VDEM data and the lower chamber female legislator ratio. So this is The dashed lines represent African averages and solid lines represent global averages. So Malawi is more or less a typical case in terms of women's representation in lower chamber and women's political empowerment index, according to VDEM. Okay, so this is how the speech-making patterns look like in these 4 years. So women or men speak a lot more than women in parliament, almost in all topics, except some, like things like education, where women spoke more, healthcare, housing. The gap is kind of smaller in some other issues, but the large gaps you can see in things like macroeconomics, government. We don't have foreign policy here, I guess. Yes, we don't. But mostly these male domain issues are the so-called male domain issues. Men dominated women in the speech-making patterns. All right, and this is kind of a broader picture. We looked at the ratio between men versus female speech-making ratio here. And in the first term, in the male president term, Mutharika, males speak a lot more than women. But what we see here on the right-hand side, women tried to catch up with men by taking the parliamentary floor a lot more. So we see this, still there is this gap remaining there. But even this change, we believe, is a substantial change, which we'll talk more about in the coming slides. But we believe that this is a substantial change. If you look at the percentage, so it went from 0.65 maybe to above 0.85. And this is our main empirical result. So we are not presenting here tables to make it more simplistic. This is just a graph that shows the female-male MP speech ratio. And that line, that change in the middle, represents the passing of Mutharika in the month 20 or maybe 19. So as you can see, there is this sharp increase in the ratio of women taking the parliamentary floor in terms of the number of speeches made in a month. We also looked at some different types of analyses. For example, this is a lot, but I can pick some of these for you. For example, the middle graph on top shows that first differences between governments. So the first government versus the second government. So Mutharika versus Joyce Banda. And as you can see, there was no change among males in terms of the likelihood of speaking or the number of parliamentary speeches, but there was a significant increase in the number of speeches made by women in parliament. Also, I can show you the speech-making pattern on the economy, which is down on the right-hand side. And as you can see here, in the Mutharika period, there is this gender differences on the speech-making on the economy, but not in Banda. So we looked at it the other way now this time, comparing Mutharika to Banda on the speeches on the economy. So we show, in short, that there are significant changes both in the number of total speeches and the content of the speeches, in the sense that women started to speak more about the economy compared to men, but still there is this gap, male-dominated women in the parliament in these speeches. But we believe that these are substantial changes because it happened immediately after the death of President Mutharika. All right, as I said, I tried to keep it short. So here we attempted to leverage an important exogenous event, the death of the sitting president, Mutharika, on the legislative behavior of women in parliament. So this was kind of a supporting evidence for past scholarship from advanced democracies. So a lot of research, like many papers, show that having women in executive positions has this important symbolic effect. But those studies were mostly before and after, in the sense that so in this election we have a male president, in the next election we have a female president. But a lot of changes happened there in between elections, right? So party composition has changed. Maybe the gender composition of the parliamentarians has changed, maybe, right? So what we want to do here is to keep everything constant so that we can focus simply on the effect of the symbolic effect of having a female president versus having a male president. We are still unable to answer some important questions. So things like, did or will the symbolic effect of Joyce Banda continue? We don't know. So that's really important if this effect continues over time, even after Joyce Banda was replaced by someone else. And this is, I think, or we think, that something future research can answer by looking at this issue in a longitudinal manner. That's all I have today. I'm happy to hear about your questions if you have any.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I think this is a very important empirical research that contributes, well, in the literature with maybe future studies. So we're looking forward to having your model, you know, replicated in different contexts, of course. Thank you very much. Well, you also pointed out, like, in soft power issues, women tend to be more expressive and demanding, you know, at the legislative bodies. So we have here Arzu. Arzu has been working at, well, as I told you, at the European Affairs as an expert, the director for EU Affairs as an expert. And she has been working at the coordination of what is called Chapter 26, like education, culture, some soft power related issues. Probably, you know, we'll hear more about, you know, what's going on in that field as well. And Arzu, yes, the floor is yours. I don't want to take your time. So again, welcome and thank you very much for being with us. We're looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you very much, Ebru Hocam. First of all, I would like to say Happy International Women's Day for all of you. And today I'm a bit excited because I'm very much honored to participate in an event hosted by Bahçeşehir University, especially by the Department of Political Relations and International Relations. And I am one of the first graduates, I guess, of this department, and maybe more than 16 years ago. Oh my God. And one of the first students of you, Ebru Hoca, I guess. You were a fresh research assistant at the beginning of 20s when we were students at the university. Yeah. But you haven't much changed since then. That's really good. And I want to give my special thanks to Selcan Hocam, my dear friend, and also she recommended me for this event to you and inviting me to you. Also, I see among the participants, I see Zekeriya Hoca is participating, so he is my classmate, so I'm saying hello to him. But today I want to talk about EU, Turkey, and gender perspective issues. But forgive me, I'm not a gender expert. I used to work for women NGOs more than 10 or 12 years ago, so I'm a little bit stranger to literature. So at the weekend, I try to check out what's going on at the gender issues. So. But first of all, I want to tell something about my personal experiences because I'm a graduate of the Bahçeşehir University, and I see the most of the audience here is composed of the students, I guess. So I want to mention a bit of my personal experience. Maybe it could be interesting for your students. So when I'm thankful to Bahçeşehir University that I had a good education. I studied both economics and political science as a double major student, so I had a good infrastructure there. And then from the second year of my undergraduate degrees, I started to, Istanbul is a big city full of opportunities, so I tried to experience private sector. I tried many internships and tried to see what kind of jobs could take me. At the beginning of my students, so I was thinking to become a stock exchange analyzer or something like that, but then my ideas has changed because I found during my internships that the people who were working in the sector were so arrogant, and I didn't like the sector, so I changed my place myself to NGOs after my graduation. So the EU issue was also at heydays. So we can call during the 2005-2006 years. So I learned how to draft a project proposal. So most of the NGOs welcomed me because of my this kind of talent. So it was gained a golden skill for me. And for a short time, 1.5 years, I was able to work for a woman NGO. It was the NGO was close to conservative ruling party of but I was able to draft them one of the first gender responsive budgeting projects of that time. It was about gender budgeting responsive projects at the local governments in the Marmara region model. So 11 municipalities we covered, but I want to tell you some anecdotes. No municipality was welcoming us, despite the NGOs from the conservative ruling party managers, women managers, but they from the top, there should be a phone call should be going to the mayors, so they could only welcome us because they were not expecting such a idea of gender budgeting issue. So we were able to introduce this gender budgeting issue to strategy civil servants at the municipality and other civil servants present at the municipalities. It was a strange and overarching, I guess, experience. Also, another project was, it was Erasmus now it's called. It's a kind of youth project we drafted, and we, first of all, I want to say that each student group can make an Erasmus project when they combine themselves and find their counterparts, friends at the other countries, and draft a project and submit it to the Erasmus program. So this was one of them, and its name was called Young Women on the Way of Politics. So young women from Italy, Malta, and Bulgaria and Greece come together, and we hosted them at Istanbul and also in Ankara as field visits to Grand National Assembly and ministers, and also some informal training experiences they got. So all the participants were aiming to enter into the politics at the early age. So this was one of the aim of the project. So a few projects also followed. But then I decided to abolish NGO sector because it was mostly managed by people who are so far away from ideology, their ideals, and pursuing their own self-interest mostly. So I decided to go to the Ankara, and for a time I worked for the Grand National Assembly for MP advisor, and then it was a short but interesting experience for me. Then another sector I tried is I became research assistant at the 9 Eylül University Economics Department of the Graduate School of 9 Eylül University. Then I saw that being an academic is a long way, so I again quit up. So at the heart of the EU issues was a kind of dream for me. Was in Ankara. Prime Minister at that time name was Prime Ministry Secretary General for EU Affairs. So when I had the exams, I was able to achieve them. So with a great success. So I was very honorable to get into that position, assistant expert for EU affairs. And then since 2010, I am a member of, now the name is changed, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Director for EU Affairs. Once before, it was a Minister for EU Affairs, as you know. It's always transforming with the transforming of the government's structure of our country. Now, I want to mention you some, let me share my screen. Yes. I have a small presentation. So, can you able to see it? Okay. So, I try to have a quick look at the gender equality in the EU is how and in Turkey. So EU and gender equality in the EU is guaranteed by the legislation of I pointed out here some very important treaties: Treaty of Rome, Treaty of Maastricht, Treaty of Amsterdam. They all underlines, especially the Treaty of Lisbon, is a kind of constitution of the EU, underlines the gender balance between women and men. And EU has many directives. This is very important. Although some acquis is composed of soft policies, but especially the economics related, employment related things are mostly covered by directives. So all member states are obliged to obey the rules, transpose these directives into their national legislation. So also EU tries to achieve higher and higher, so proposes strategies, and in these strategies there are measures that have to be followed by the member states. So the measures underlined in these strategies are monitored and supported by through EU funds, EU actions, that member states can reach these measures and targets. So the recent strategy about gender is the Gender Equality Strategy 2020-2025. It has a head striving for a union of equality. So the first female president is last year appointed President Ursula von der Leyen, and she has a good, I quoted her, she's saying gender equality is a core principle of the European Union, but it's not yet a reality. So we can see that still the European Union has much to achieve the gender equality in the Union. So what this gender equality strategy says, there are 5 key areas are underlined there. First, being free from violence and stereotypes. Secondly, thriving in a gender equal economy, leading equality throughout society, gender mainstreaming and funding. And lastly, promoting gender equality and women's empowerment across the other countries. So if we look at the statistics quickly, we can see that, I hope that you can see them. They are a bit small letters, but women in the EU earn 16% average less than men per hour. This is important. Only 65 of women in the EU are employed compared to 78 of the men. Also, on average, women's pensions are 30% lower than men's pensions. This means that in their retirements, women are less having less income than men, and 75% of unpaid care and domestic work is done by women. And another statistics about the violence, 33 of women in the EU experience physical and or sexual violence once in their lifetime. 22% of women in the EU have experienced violence by an intimate partner. 55% of women in the EU have been sexually harassed by harassed and experience online sexual harassment. Another thing is that what about the top positions? Only 7.5 of the board chairs and 7.7 of the CEOs are women. Still, it's very low for the EU too. Only 22 of artificial intelligence programs are participated by women. 39% of members of the parliament are women, nearly 40%, but ours are less than the EU. And the other, what about more facts? If we deep into the statistics about care, about 33% of women have taken a career break of at least 6 months for child care reasons. Compared to men, it's very high. 16.9 of women in the EU 27, they reported they are not seeking employment because of their care duties. 44% of Europeans still think that the most important role of women is take care home and their family. This is high for when we think about European Union is more composed of individualistic citizens, but still it's high. Probably it's much higher in Turkey. Economic participation issue, women account 29.5% of board members in the largest public listed 174 companies. Although women make up more than half of the EU's population, only 34.4 are self-employed, and and the other is during the pandemic. So we all witness that the woman is kind of suffering pandemic more than men. A study of recent study of 115 countries dedicated COVID-19 task forces in 87 countries. 17 of them are EU member states. So mainly task forces and the leadership positions during the pandemic in the health sector is mostly occupied by the men. So this is also interesting statistics to mention. So how about Turkey? The facts, as you know, Turkey ranks 113th in the gender gap index. It's so low position when the Turkey is among the G20 of economies of the world, and only 17.3 are member of parliaments are women, but it's gradually increasing. Thanks to that, it was much more worse in the beginning of the millennium. Labor force participation rate of women is 34.5%, and for men it's more than 70%. 84 women out of 10 is exposed to physical and sexual violence once in their lifetime. And the gender wage gap is a much higher than the EU. It was 14 for the EU, now for Turkey is 15.6, but this is of course formal economy, but we know that at the informal economy it's a much more huge problem. Self-employed is more than 30s in the EU, but in Turkey it's 17%. And the other large listed companies, president, board members, high positions are in Turkey it's 17.5. In the EU it's nearly 30%. Large listed companies, CEOs, executive, non-executive, executive positions in Turkey is 11. EU is 19%. Supreme Court representation, their members and presidents in Turkey, there are no president, I guess. But as the members, when we compared, it's lower than the EU average. And women academics, finally, we have much better statistics than EU in this sense. And also the another one that I know from the education sector, the girls engaging more than the EU in Turkey into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics related courses. That's also another good thing for Turkey. Measures, yes, in the beginning of the millennium, Turkey with the new government began to through the EU reform process, huge legislative changes, reform has occurred, but and I want to mention just a little the recent ones. The law on the protection of family and prevention of violence against women, it was just 6 years ago, but it was one of the important things, but still we witness femicide issues in Turkey a lot. The women's empowerment strategy document and action plan occurred. National action plan and combat violence against women is another plan that followed by the government. And Turkey is part of international conventions. You know, Istanbul Convention and CEDAW among them. But still, we have some problems because the legislation could be perfect, but the implementation, practice, attitudes, and mentality could be behind the legislation. So that's the main problem in Turkey, as we can understand. But the EU's conditionality is so much important, as you call through the. I heard that Rahima Hocam mentioned Europeanization of gender, feminist politics. I just saw that you achieved this through a Can Money projects. That's a very good achievement for you. But here, students, I want to underline that the Can Money scholarship is different, but the Can Money module or Can Money chair, that kind of projects are funded under Erasmus Plus to award academicians European integration studies. That's a really good opportunity, and other programs is available under EU funds. For example, Horizon Europe, there is ERC, European Research Council for researchers, and I want Bahçeşehir University to hold one of the awards, this research projects, because it's very important. It's awards researchers, one researcher, more than 2 million euros, and Koç University and Bilkent University are far beyond achieving this, and I desire that one day Bahçeşehir University in the soon time able to capture this EU awards too. So if you look at the EU's conditionality through projects, that it's a candidate, Turkey is a candidate country. Maybe you heard the name of IPA funds. So Turkey and EU, because of being candidate country, we have financial cooperation. This is the only functioning area nowadays between the Turkey and EU relations. But you know, the other issues are politically stagnated, and so we continue our relation through the financial cooperation and projects. Over 30 million euros spent throughout projects for gender equality. That's not enough, maybe, but it's a good amount. Through training and capacity development for government institutions, bureaucrats, NGOs, and public, it's created awareness about gender equality. It's worth to mention. Another thing is financial support sometimes could be available through EU's financial institutions, which is EBRD, one of them, and they allowed in 2017 30 million euros loans for the women entrepreneurs. And always for the projects, before drafting the project, gender, environment, inclusion, these subjects are always horizontal priority, and whatever the issue is, could be transportation or other kind of issues like justice, but gender should be horizontal priority in the projects while somebody is drafting. So I just try to summarize, gather up some IPO projects that through our EU adventure, that what kind of projects have been implemented. So civil society dialogue, maybe you have been heard, because it's from the 1st and 5th, it's upcoming the 6th one. It's benefited most women NGOs too. Sivil Düşün program, now its third is implemented. Integration administrative recourse in combating violence against women. EU and UN Women program, ending violence against women in the Western Balkans and Turkey. Implementing gender responsive planning budgeting in Turkey 2020-2023. It's just started. Promoting decent future of work approach with a focus on gender equality, women in business program, it was 2013. Promoting gender equality in business life, supporting women's employment, increasing continuity of female students at secondary school level, improving gender equality in education. Projects on strengthening gender equality, mainstreaming gender equality, and also childcare issues are handled through these projects, and violence and cash transfer also supported through these projects. So other, more than IPO projects, there are also union programs. So as a horizontal approach, the gender issues could be integrated in these programs too. So Turkey is participating in this project related fund union programs. So Erasmus Plus is one of them. It's not just the exchange program, it supports youth support and education environments through many project types. ESG, European Solidarity Corps, also a youth program, we call it, and it's about volunteering. So people, students who are wanting to have a career at NGOs, maybe they can just be volunteer at NGOs at Europe. So this could be a good opportunity. So as I mentioned before, Horizon EU has many research opportunities, and also industry university combining projects are available for innovation and research and development projects. COSME is supporting SMEs and entrepreneurship, so it's also have projects supporting women entrepreneurs. EASY is a employment and social innovation program. The name is it's a tool supporting for social policy of the EU, so it also has projects for women. And the other one is we will participate again in this program, Creative Europe. It supports the cultural operators in the culture, music in the sector. So the projects, if you are interested, could be just, you can follow through our website. So I just underlined them. My conclusion could be that as the Rahime Hocam mentioned, that the Europeanization of gender issues in Turkey is very important. So the conditionality, that a tool that we have to hang on. So if we look at the picture, so achievements of gender policies, Turkey achieved great things, but it's not enough, because the world and the EU is having more further ways. So the mentality should be changing, but we know that also I'm a civil servant, but I want to mention that through the American elections, so I think in the EU's Turkey relation, there will be a new window. So the transatlantic approach, transatlantic alliance will be more powerful. So we will enter into a new phase. That Turkey will strengthen its relationship through US and the EU, I guess. So this will increase the conditionality power of the EU. So reforms could foster for gender issues also. So no EU accession is possible without women's rights is ensured in Turkey, I guess. So we should focus on having EU is an anchor for modernization and reform on our republic's path. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very extensive presentation. There are very important information as well for, our students too. So I'm sure they're inspired with all these possibilities at the EU level that further the collaboration between the European Union and Turkey. Thank you very much, Arzu. And we are finally with our last speaker, Maysa. Maysa, that's a great pleasure for us to have you. You are coming more from an, civil sector, right? And you have done great things. I heard from Damla, and I followed you on the social media accounts, and I'm very inspired, and I congratulate for you. What have you, for what you've done so far on women and refugee aspects. So maybe, we will be inspired, I'm sure, at the end of your speech. Maybe you can start with, how you ended up in doing so many different things and achieving, so many interesting things. I'm sure that you'll be a great inspiration for our students as well. So the floor is yours, and thank you very much for being with us again. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you for this great words. And first of all, I want to say Happy International Women Day for all the lovely women that we have now, and for the men who also who support women. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be part of this also. And to talk about this topic from my own experience and perspective. I will speak about my experience and I have been here in the Netherlands for 3 years. Of course, I left Syria after the war, and I lived 1 year in Lebanon, 4 years in Istanbul, and now I've been 3 years in Holland. And I faced different positions, from a single woman in Istanbul to a mother now in Netherlands. So I will speak about what I did and my opinion with this topic. After the war, I left to Lebanon. Yeah, I lived 1 year. I was working with NGOs, and I was doing some psychosocial support through music, doing some activities with the Syrian children in Lebanon. It was very difficult time, because the time was I didn't know how much the war will take. I thought it's just a few months and then I will come back to my country. And when I knew that it's taking longer time, so I went to Istanbul. I was working there in the music domain, and yeah, also I felt that there is a huge need for I felt that I need to do something. I need to use my to use my power to integrate, to make a difference. So I came up with the idea to build a choir. Members were refugees, locals, Turkish, international musicians who want to create a family, a big family, who can sing in Arabic, Turkish, Armenian, Kurdish, Persian. The idea of this was to make people feel we all can give one voice, and then we all gather and give a message of integration, and we are all same. So I also did some music activities with the Syrian children in Istanbul, and I was invited to do some also workshops with children in Greece and in camps. So what I want to say about refugees' life in general, but especially for women, it was not easy at all, because I was a single lady living in Istanbul. There is always a pressure from the society. There is always expectation from people. They ask ignorant question like, will you go back to your country if the war? This is the most question that people ask. Will you go back to your country? When are you going back to your country? If the war's finished, will you go back to your country? They always think that refugees are the reason of crimes, violence, high rents. You are stealing our jobs, you are stealing our men. Always these ideas about refugees, and mostly about women. And we always feel that we are in a weak position. We always need to define ourselves, and it was not easy at all. So life of refugees are really we suffer in secret, and it's hard to integrate, to make friends, to make new people. Not easy. Of course, there is also we are living in different culture. Even though Turkish culture is very similar to Syrian culture, but still there are differences. So yeah, 4 years in Istanbul took a very too much from me, from my energy, but also it inspired me to do more, to do something. I couldn't just be without doing anything. So I did the choir. What I saw from NGOs working in Turkey for refugees, they were all actually, I didn't believe in what they are doing in the ground. On the ground, they did nothing. Always they collect numbers, always they collect informations, they make visits, they spend money for seminars, for hotel reservations for people who are coming from EU. I saw really something, sometimes it was disgusting to see how they spend money for nothing, and people on the ground, they get nothing. And there is also something to mention that people think that refugees only need food and clothes and shelters, which is important, of course, but there is importance for cultural projects and projects that make people involved more in the society, feel they are doing something, and especially for children, like education. Otherwise, all this pressure will come out in a very bad thing for the society. Firstly, like now, I'm in EU, and I can see. I'm sorry, I don't have numbers, I don't have studies, but I can say what I see. That there is a high records of divorce, because all the women who were living in Turkey, and they come with their husbands in EU, they all the pressure and all the suffer that they were living, it come out now after they have a kind of secure life. So divorce and admitting suicide also, it's getting higher and higher day after day, which is very sad. So what I think that we all have responsibility to change this. We all have responsibility to point this and make action. What also I want to say about yeah. So when I was in Turkey, I noticed that the NGOs are more about making meetings and just not real action on the ground. I tried to set up Tomorrow is Better organization. It was not easy for me to register it in Turkey because I was only like a woman, and we need a board, and documents were very difficult to do. So I registered it in the Netherlands with my partner. He was living here in the Netherlands. So we registered it here, and we did a lot of things. All the events and the activities were in Turkey. We organized a festival for talents for children, Syrian children in Istanbul. It was the first time they do something like this for talents and for like a drawing, singing. And after this, I got a lot of good feedback from families and the children who participate. They all feel very confident, they feel very happy, they feel hope in only just one event like this. So I wonder why NGOs not doing more like these activities. After this, I was invited to do activity in Greece camp for Syrian children, and also for doing workshop with women, Syrian women. Actually, they were not only Syrian, but more refugee women, Afghan, Iraqi, Eritrea, and African Syrian women. Also, I noticed that how they come to the workshop and how they finish. They come, they are very close, they are inconfident, they have fears, worries, and after how in just 1 hour or 2 hours, how they change, how they have hope, how they have positive vibes, they want to make new friends, how they want to, they feel better. So the needs really is more about making social projects, not only focusing about food and clothes. And for children, mostly is about education. This is my opinion. Now, after I moved to Netherlands, my my activity become less, because Netherlands has bureaucracy, and every project I have to do is I have to apply and I have to wait, and here everyone is very cold. Not like Turkey. In Turkey, really, I was very happy that people are individuals. I'm not talking about NGOs or something, but I got a lot of help from locals, from people who really want to help, who offered volunteering, who helped me so much. So I'm very grateful to Turkish people for this. Here in Netherlands, it's a bit difficult to create projects. Now I'm planning to make a choir, a new choir. But now, because of pandemic, I'm thinking to make it more, I'm thinking in a smart way to make it online, like online choir for mother and children. I want to make mother and children singing online by Zoom or other application, if we can do it. To also sing in different languages, and more about expressing feelings and emotions, because singing make people happy. If you feel tired, if you feel sad, if you feel excited, singing make you smile. So I believe so much in the power of voice and the music, and how it's like therapy for people who are suffering. So this is my project, which I'm planning to now, and I'm waiting to to see how to connect it more and to make it unreal. By the way, I'm very open to any idea, any comment, any if you feel you can help with anything, if you have an idea, I'm very open to hear and listen. So this is my experience. I hope it can add something to your webinar. Thank you for having me again.
Well, we thank you very much. Apparently you've gone through a very, thorny roads, right? That you end up in the Netherlands. And from this side of the world, probably most refugees want to end up in Europe at some point for a better living. And from that part of Europe, you long for other parts, other feelings or something else in Turkey. So, well, this is probably very much related to the hashtag of this year's International Women's Day, right? Choose to challenge. I mean, we actually face with a lot of challenges. I was listening to you, and I was thinking about my final question to ask you, because I don't want to dominate the entire Q&A session, but we are here coming from different sectors, right? I mean, we have two academics which actually face with different kinds of challenges, like maybe Murat is faced with like data collection on difficult parts of the world, you know, Rahima is dealing with modeling feminist studies in IR. Ours is coming from, you know, it's civil servant perspective, you know, that deals with for a long time on, you know, Turkey-EU relations, which is not a difficult task at all. And you, Marsa, well, your stories as a woman, as a refugee woman, it's like, of course, completely maybe different, but you, well, you know, very frankly, you shared your experiences with us, and maybe very few people in this room right now are familiar with. We have here our, you know, student society, Bahçeşehir University's Gender Equality Student Society, and I'm sure that they are very much inspired with your, you know, with your stories, and you know, they will definitely, you know, communicate with you for maybe joint work. You know, I don't know. Young people are full of different project ideas, so I'm sure that they will contact you very soon. Well. There's been like a very
something, please. I'm sorry. Can I add
sure,
something?
go ahead.
Yeah, there is maybe something nice to share with you. When I was in Turkey, my friend Elif Edat Tibet, she's a director. She followed my work for 1.5 years with the choir, with the backstage, with the concerts, with the activities with the children, and with her camera. And after we worked together to make a film about not only my life in Turkey, but more about the choir stories and my story and how I came to Netherlands, and all this. And we made a film. We call it Ballad for Syria. I can share the link with you. It's not a public film though, because we sent it to festivals, and we got a lot of awards. We screened the film in many festivals, in United Nations, in Geneva, in Hollywood film festivals, and we got a lot of awards. But I'm very happy to share it with you, and or maybe we can later arrange an event to screen the film, because it's very inspiring and it gives hope. So, but I can share with you the link of the website of the film. You can see the trailer. You can read about.
That'd be great. Why don't you just type it here, like in the chat box, so that sure, everybody could just see it and Google it and watch it. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, there's been some questions and comments in the chat room while our speakers were talking, but let me ask you if there is any questions from the audience that you want to, you know, talk to the panelists, or that you want to raise your final comments. Anybody, you can just raise your hand. There is this reaction button here that you can simply raise your hand. Anyways, while waiting, if there's anyone who wants to ask anything, let me ask one final question to our panelists, right? So this is the theme of this today's, you know, event was more on the inclusivity, right? So women politics in an inclusive world. And maybe I just realized that we could have put like a question mark at the end, right? So to keep thinking more on this question, what would you choose to challenge, you know, to make the world a better, more inclusive place for, you know, women in different parts of the world? I mean, let me ask from let me start from again, Rahime, you in the same order that you spoke. What would you choose to challenge? You are muted. Rahime, you are muted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would choose to challenge patriarchy, which is I think everywhere. It stalks us everywhere, at home, at work, at conferences, everywhere, and it presents itself in different forms, and it's hard to challenge this. And if I get more power, I would challenge patriarchy for sure.
Wow, thank you very much. This is all inclusive. Patriarchy itself.
Yes.
Yes, Murad, what would be that you challenge?
I would agree with Rahima in the sense that I would challenge one particular form of patriarchy in the parliament, since my research focuses on parliament, so I really love to see in Turkey more women getting seats in the parliament and speaking a lot more. So when we analyze the data in Turkey as well, this is the same pattern here. So even if the number of women increased over time, still they don't take the parliamentary floor. So we don't get to see what they say about things like the quote unquote women issues. Mm-hmm. So that will be the most important thing that I would challenge in the context of Turkey.
Wow, thank you very much. Well, you're coming from, you're joining us from Norway. So we point out the Scandinavian countries like as an example, role model for gender equality, gender political parity, but knowing that there has been, also some backlash there in still meeting the high standards. But thank you very much. I mean, that was very meaningful, and that is a challenge, huh? I must say. All right, what about Arzu? What would you like to say? What would you challenge?
I could challenge to less participation of women in the economy, because there are many obstacles in the economy, I guess. Before women just being powerful in monetary terms, income or wealth. So women cannot rising up their voices in the politics and other areas of the social economic life. So, but we are advancing on it, because if we just remembered 100 years ago that the heritage law was just undermining women rights, so women couldn't accumulate enough wealth. So they have still obstacles in entering into business, accessing to finance. So if these obstacles are challenged and solved, they could be empowered in the economy and then in life and politics, I guess.
Wow, so the list about challenges is just like getting longer and longer. Thank you very much, Arzu. And the last word goes to Maysa. What would you choose to challenge, Maysa?
I choose to challenge because I believe in my power to make a difference in my life and in other lives and other people that I love around me. I choose to challenge because life is not easy for everyone, and I can't just be silent and not do any action. I choose to challenge for the people who deserve a better future, and that's why I call my organization Tomorrow is Better, because I believe we all have a responsibility to make a better place for everyone.
Well, thank you. I share wholeheartedly all your points. Thank you very much. Well, I see that there are like more questions that come and more answers that come. Unfortunately, I not have the chance to pick them. Our speakers have already answered in detail. They've tried to respond to questions. So maybe we can just start from pick one question from the audience, right? Well, Ece Esra Benli, this is for you, Maysa. She's actually from Gender Equality Student Society, that she says, you know, they'll be glad to contact you. And well, Selcan, wrote the last question for would like to make women from all sectors throughout history and literature, arts, science, wow, STEM, and you know, more education for women. Well, anyways, I think we are already like we have already talked a lot. You became very tired, and unfortunately, you know, we don't have more time to cover all the questions, but I want to thank everyone for joining us with us. Our intention to have this panel today within the framework of our foreign policy talks that we've been organizing for some time as Bahçeşehir, you know, political science department. The idea is, of course, like to tackle with, you know, different aspects of women and politics. Which is already a 14-week course itself, right? And I'm very glad that we tried to touch upon different aspects of this problem, like how the legislative is, like how foreign policy is conducted, what about in bureaucracy and what about in civilian sector. Thank you very much for being with us. It was great to have you, and we will have like a small, you know, present for our speakers. We like traditionally, since the beginning of these online webinars, we are donating, right, to some civil society organizations to thank our speakers, to thank our panelists, at least to have also some social benefit. So we thank you very much. You'll be receiving our small presents very soon, and hope to see you again. And good luck with all your work, all your academic work, you know, choirs, and maybe women in economy, right? Arzu, good luck, Turkey-EU relations, and thank you very much. And you know, hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Very much.
Very much.